All right, hello there, thrill seekers. I got a quote for you. Don't anticipate and don't regret, and there will be no pain. It is memory and imagination that cause suffering. We're going to talk about that after 20 seconds of the Beatles song Julia, played kind of sloppily, but I only just learned it yesterday. All right, thrill seekers. Yeah, it was a little rough, but I only just learned it yesterday, and I'm going to practice it more. And so maybe we'll revisit the song later, and I'll learn the rest of it because I only learned the parts that I played for the video. So let's talk about that quote that I read to you from the beginning, at the beginning, not from the beginning. Well, from the beginning, sort of. It comes from the book I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. This is not the current version. The current version has a kind of a brown cover with Nisargadatta's picture. That's him on the back. It's got his picture, I think, on the front. This is an earlier version. I love this book so much that I went out and found the earlier edition to see if there were any changes that they made. And actually, there are a few, but it's mostly in terms of grammar. This early version sounds slightly Indian in its English. It sounds like the way Indian people speak English. Not deeply so, but more than the current version, which has been a bit Americanized or anglicized. I don't know. But as I have talked about on this channel a couple of times, I'm going to start undergoing some medical treatments starting next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday. Don't ask what that means. Anyway, starting next Tuesday, and the treatments I'm getting are said to make one tired and feel a little bit off, or maybe a lot off, I don't know. And I don't know how much of these videos I'm going to be able to make. I assume I'll still be able to keep making videos because it's not very physically intensive work. So even being tired and feeling a little bit off shouldn't keep me from making them. But if you don't see quite as many videos, you'll know why. But I'm also working on a book, which I have mentioned before. It is provisionally titled The Zen of Godzilla. And I find that writing a book, I'd forgotten about this because I haven't written much in the last few years. And it's great. I mean, I really like it. It's very relaxing. It's much more relaxing than doing these videos. So a lot of the reason I've been away from the video channel for a little bit is not, well, I mean, it's partly because of what's going on with the health stuff, but it's also because I'm finding the writing of this book is really nice and kind of therapeutic because I'm just diving right into doing this very quiet thing. But one of the things I've also been doing is I've been turning to this book a lot because I find this book is really helpful to me in times of difficulty. So I've talked about the book before, but maybe people have missed it, so I'll tell you what it is. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj was a man from Mumbai, India. And he apparently ran a little string of shops that made what they call in India bidis. I'd never heard of this, but they're like these little tiny cigarettes. And I guess these shops might have been sort of like something like a convenience store that mainly sold these bidis and then other sundries that one might need. He ran, I don't know how many of them, but he had a few of them that he ran for a while. And then sometime in his early 30s, he got the idea that he wanted to understand the truth of life, the universe, and everything, like a lot of us do, like I did. So he went off, and being Indian, he found a guru. And this guru told him, concentrate on the thought I am. Concentrate on understanding that. This is how he puts it. I'm not sure that it's so much of a thought as sort of a feeling, the feeling of existence, the feeling of I am here. What's this all about? Just not saying I am Brad and I am American and I am this and I am that. Not saying that I am all the things one identifies with oneself, but looking at the very source, the whole way down of I am. And I find this to be quite similar to Dogen's dictum. Is that right? Is that the word? Anyway, his thing in Fukan Zazengi is, I believe, where he says it. Doesn't really matter. But he says, turn the light around and shine it inward. Think the thought of not thinking. What is the thought of not thinking? It's different from thinking. And this is how he describes it. Nisargadatta Maharaj has some meditation instructions that sound very much like Shikantaza. So here are Nisargadatta's meditation instructions. This also comes from the book I Am That. He says, when you sit quiet and watch yourself, all kinds of things may come to the surface. Do nothing about them. Don't react to them. As they have come, so will they go, by themselves. All that matters is mindfulness, total awareness of one's self, or rather of one's mind. The person alone is objectively observable. The observer is beyond observation. What is observable is not the real self. You can observe the observation, but not the observer. You know that you are the ultimate observer by direct insight, not by a logical process based on observation. You are what you are, but you know what you are not. The self is known as being. The not-self is known as transient. But in reality, all is in the mind. The observed, observation, and observer are mental constructs. The self alone is. So that's the meditation instructions. He doesn't really advocate meditation the way we do in the Zen sect, where we just really say you got to meditate, you got to do zazen. But just getting back to his story, he found his guru and he concentrated on the thought I am and came to a kind of deep understanding of stuff. He had been away from his cigarette shops for a while, and because of that, they'd all gone out of business except for one. So he went back and decided to keep running that little cigarette shop, and he lived in an apartment above. The story goes that when he had his great insight, his enlightenment experience, if you will, he initially thought, well, I'll just go off to the Himalayas and enjoy this and maybe teach people up there, because you could do that in India. But then he thought, well, if enlightenment is everywhere, if everything is the enlightened state, as he had discovered, then why don't I just go back to Mumbai? So he went back to Mumbai, went back to his family, and went back to his little apartment above the cigarette shop, and started accepting people there who wanted to talk to him. So he would I think he did bhajans, which is singing these kind of Indian spiritual songs, and then several days a week, anybody who wanted to could come to his apartment and they would sit around and ask him questions. And at some point, a guy named Maurice Friedman, who is a Polish fellow, I guess, listened to him because Maurice could speak. He only spoke Marathi, I think is how you pronounce it, an Indian language. But Maurice Friedman understood that language and understood English and started translating some of his talks into English. And that became this book, which apparently Nisargadatta himself approved of. He had somebody sort of translate it back into Marathi so he could understand it. And he thought this was a good expression of his stuff. So I've been turning to this book because I turn to it a lot. It's a very I find it really useful, comforting in a way, but more than that, I think he's on the right track. All of the insights that Nisargadatta expresses seem like grown-up versions of the baby insights I've had. Or maybe my insights aren't so baby, but I feel like he was more grounded in the same truth that I came across, that I've written about in Hardcore Zen and things like that, in the sort of moments I've had of clarity. This book feels like a way of expounding upon that in much greater detail. That's how it feels to me, so that's why I like it so much. So I've been worried about the sort of pain of these upcoming treatments, the difficulties of them, the fear that I have of it, because we all have fear. And fear is, well, I don't want to quote Yoda. Fear is the mind killer, or whatever he says. It's not like that exactly, but it's something that comes up with all of us, and understanding it is good. And I came across a chapter kind of randomly. I've just been going through the book one chapter after another in order. This is my 6th time, I think, of reading this book, maybe the 7th. And I landed on this chapter a couple of days ago. It's chapter 59, Desire and Fear, Self-Centered States. It's a great chapter, and the questioner here, who's unidentified, is asking about the question of pleasure, pain, desire, and fear. And I just want to read a couple of Nisargadatta Maharaja's answers that I found really useful, but I would highly recommend, if you get a hold of this book and read the whole chapter, read the whole damn book. I think it's really good. But here is one of the questions. If reality itself is bliss, then pleasure in some way must be related to it. That's the question. And Nisargadatta Maharaj answers, let us not proceed by verbal logic. The bliss of reality does not exclude suffering. Besides, you know only pleasure, not the bliss of pure being, so let us examine pleasure at its own level. If you look at yourself, in your moments of pleasure or pain, you will invariably find that it is not the thing in itself that is pleasant or painful, but the situation of which it is part. Pleasure lies in the relationship between the enjoyer and the enjoyed. And the essence of it is acceptance. Whatever may be the situation, if it is acceptable, it is pleasant. If it is not acceptable, it is painful. What makes it acceptable is not important. The cause may be physical or psychological or untraceable. Acceptance is the decisive factor. Obversely, suffering is due to non-acceptance, which I think is really true. In my own case, it's this is like, bang! It hits me right on the noggin, because if I think of what I'm about to undergo as being unacceptable, as being like, I don't want this, which, of course nobody wants this, then I suffer. But if I change my mindset a little bit and say, okay, well, I go through this because these treatments are going to help get rid of the problem that I have, hopefully, fingers crossed, and then I won't have it anymore, and then I'll be good. My doctors seem to think that's going to work, so I'm hopeful that they are right. But I have to undergo some stuff, some difficult stuff in order to get there. So if I think of it as acceptable, then it's well, I don't know if it's going to be pleasant, but it is the pain of it kind of becomes understandable. You know why you're going through this pain, and so knowing why you're going through this pain and knowing that there's a reason for it helps. And I think this really applies to any sort of pain we undergo in life. And let me read you another quote that I thought was really great, so great that I put it on X, aka Twitter, the other day. He says, "Don't anticipate and don't regret, and there will be no pain. It is memory and imagination that cause suffering." Actually, that's a really, that could be done in total Yoda voice. Don't anticipate and don't regret, and there will be no pain. It is memory and imagination that cause suffering. Oh, sorry, I couldn't resist. But I think those two quotes are really, really good. Don't anticipate and don't regret. So I've talked about regret some, and I have loads of regrets. If I think about my current situation, I can think of lots of things I could have done that might possibly have not led me down to the path of where I am. But, I think about this. That's the point I'm making. The specifics don't matter, but the mind will cough up regrets and like, well, if you only did that, then you wouldn't be in this position right now. And also anticipation. So if I think about the stuff I'm about to have done to me, I can anticipate it in all sorts of ways. I can anticipate. I've been to so many hospitals now that I have a kind of an idea of what goes on there, and all the pokes and prods and little pains that go on, and all this stuff that happens. So I can anticipate it very clearly, and I'm a kind of imaginative guy. This is how I make my living. As a writer and all this stuff. So I'm very good at imagining scenarios, and if I'm in a bad place, I'm going to imagine bad scenarios, and they're going to be very detailed and very compelling. But as Nisargadatta Maharaj says, there's no point in regret, there's no point in anticipation. Regret is useful for one thing and one thing only, and that is to keep you from making the same mistake again. Once you have gotten that lesson from your regrets, then there's just no point in it. The regret is only a waste of energy. So you can just feed yourself all this stuff about what if I done that, what if I done that. It doesn't matter. This is the moment you're in. There is a sense, and this is drummed home in Nisargadatta Maharaj's book. Sorry, I was pointing to it, but you couldn't see what I was pointing at. That we find ourselves in the here and now. We have a memory of a past, but we can't really substantiate that. I mean, I know there's all sorts of things. My wife is into true crime dramas, and she loves this, and there's always this sort of thing, and we become very good at sort of trying to substantiate the past and saying, well, here's what happened on this time, and there's a cell phone tracking data and all this other stuff you can get to today, and there's photographs and whatever, and video footage of the person passing by the supermarket or whatever it is. I'm thinking all these true crime dramas I end up watching with my wife. And there is all that, but it may not be true, because we only have this moment, and this is the real moment we find ourselves in, and this is what we know to be real. The rest of it, the past that we might regret, we don't know to be real. We know that the memory is in there of how it is, but I also know from plenty of experience when I've gone back and double-checked my memories against things that sort of can substantiate them, that my memory is often just crap, and I don't remember. One of my favorite examples of this is in the book Hardcore Zen. I think I said that I was in Zero Defects in the beginning for about 2 years. It turns out that, because I hadn't seen anybody from Zero Defects, this is the punk rock band that I was in case if you don't know, back when I was like 18, 19 years old. And I know I was 18 and then 19, and then maybe that's why I think it was 2 years, but it actually lasted maybe a year and a couple of months before the band broke up. But, when you're young, it seems like more time has passed than you think. That's kind of a way the mind works. So there's a lot of things I got wrong, and not deliberately so, but just because the memory is not that reliable. So I don't know. I can regret my past, but I don't know that my past is real. And I can anticipate my future, but what I've seen and what I can substantiate about things like that is that whenever I have something that I'm looking forward to with great dread, I guess looking forward to usually implies positive, but if I'm anticipating something with great dread, and then that something actually happens, it's never really as bad as all that. In fact, there's often a lot of positives to the things that I feared when they happened. So there's no reason to think that this stuff I'm about to undergo is going to be any different. It's not going to be the way I anticipate it to be. It might have some relationship to that, but it won't be exactly like that. And I don't really know. So the anticipation and the regret are just ways that we build up our personal ego-based self. We think I exist and that I am going to do something, that there's this I continuity throughout everything. But the I continuity is, once you start doing a meditation practice, I think this becomes very clear. It's hard to get just by hearing it. But the I continuity is actually not it's not real. It's something that feels very real, and it connects the threads of your life together, and you can kind of make some sense of your life by following it. But it is ultimately unreal. In fact, on Instagram this morning, I saw this great quote by Alan Watts. It's not precisely related to what I just said, but it's close enough that I thought I would read it. There is simply experience. There is not something or someone experiencing experience. You do not feel feelings, think thoughts, or sense sensations any more than you hear hearing, see sight, or smell smelling. I feel fine means that a fine feeling is present. It does not mean that there is one thing called I and another separate thing called a feeling, so that when you bring them together, this I feels the fine feeling. There are no feelings but present feelings, and whatever feeling is present is I. No one ever found an I apart from some present experience, or some experience apart from an I, which is to say that the two are the same thing. Not quite what I was saying, but the idea of this I that goes across everything, and that I am going to experience something starting next Tuesday is, on paper it sounds true and everybody would agree to it, but it's not. This doesn't experience that. That experience is that experience, and this experience of making the video is this experience of making the video. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was so useful to me. A lot of you have been sending me questions that you want answered, and I do appreciate that. And if you want to send me a question to answer on this video channel, send it to bw@hardcorezen.info. And I will do my best to get to it. I've got kind of a backlog of them right now, but the more the merrier. I really do appreciate it, and I always try to answer to the people who send me those questions. So you might get an actual email from me. Woo, isn't that great? All right, so there you go. So I hope that was useful to you. It was useful to me, as I think I said. I will try to continue making these videos as I undergo the stuff I got to undergo. But I don't know for sure. I think that I probably will be able to. So we shall see. But anyway, if you want to donate to me, I appreciate your donations, and you can go to the URL that you're about to see on the screen below, or you're about to hear if you are listening to the audio version of this, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually my only ways of making a living, especially with having to cancel the tour that was coming up, which my friend Shozan Jack Haubner is going to substitute for me in at least one of the venues. I'm not sure if he's going to sub in the other one. Anyway, so I'll get some info about that when I can. But those of you who've signed up already for anything, be assured that they will actually happen, even though I won't be there, except I will be there virtually. So anyway, especially with that, I do appreciate your donations, but as always, you don't got to donate to me if you don't want to. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. How you doing, Ziggy? You doing all right? He had some stuff going on with his digestion the other day, but it looks like he's recovered, so I like that. All right, Ziggy. I'll let you rest and sigh. We'll talk to you later. Bye, Zig.